Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 24th of August. Wetline that uptick continues as we saw the MBI magenta here cross above yellow just a couple of days ago after the dip underneath, as well as we saw white back underneath red, and sure enough that responded to positive move, as well as we had orange moving under red DOC and green over red. So all of the indicators from short-term steel buyers and that all pressing for a push to new highs, and that's exactly what happened. So nothing of a shock there. Likewise, the NQ even earlier in its response in the exact same configuration. So pretty congruent. Potentially though, with the yellow, the extreme here, we're starting to get potentially towards a modest overbought within this, so we may see just a little bit of pump and then pause within that. Nothing out of the ordinary as far as that goes. From a gold standpoint, we talked about it was starting its build here from that MBI reading, and looks to continue to do the same as we see some of those supply constraints, and that are really still going to add to price increase pressure simply because of lack of supply. And that's just going to push things slightly. Euro trying to bounce back from the move, and that's definitely U.S. wanting that to be much higher than it is. But there's just a lot of constraints as far as what the euro can do given its condition and the continued limitations. Of course, if the U.S. limitations become worse, that may even it out and give a chance. We'll see what happens now that they've given Pfizer the vaccine approval, and now they're able to force vaccinations through mandates. So we'll see if that starts to convert to employers or if it restricts consumers, and that's really going to be the unknown. They add back restrictions and other conditions for doing things. I think it certainly limits economic activity, which is a bonus when you're talking about the amount of money that they've pumped into the system. It keeps things from accelerating out of control, and that's, I think, the way they intend to hold inflation. From a Bitcoin standpoint, we had that big run up, and we ended up with the little miniature reset there, and most of that is because we got positive extremes, and that will take things all the way back down to that 47 range on a full sell signal. It's not taking place right now. We're in a little bit of a turnaround back up, but when that takes place, we'll be able to see it from an intraday standpoint. We started up and literally didn't really change much of that. We had a couple of soft spots in there, but they weren't anything too dramatic. Again, we had positive extremes that came back through there, and that's what got filled here in the after hours. There's still a couple of additional ones that go back a little bit further and start to fill in some of these spaces in between the ones that we had before. So if you just mark those, like I said, in fact, I can put that one that goes off of this range set up right here. We have right about that line to cooperate. Doesn't want to move. Okay. I have it on snap mode, that's why. Watch that sometimes. Allows it to go right in between there. And then, of course, the one that filled us the second run, which is right up here. And we'll go ahead and mark that real quick. And you can see the red extreme right down here. And we just match that low, and that just gives us the next series of moves in between. So, 4470, 4460 is a 10-point range, but it certainly fills in some of the spacing between the larger gap ranges that we had from before. And of course, the turnaround happened when we had the crossover right there, evidenced by the orange buy signal, and right back up at the peaks for the current pre-market session. All in all, things moving along nicely. Now that you're at the 4485, the push towards 4500 is pretty much built into that setup. Usually I look for right around 92 range or so to create some resistance, and if it doesn't, then usually we push well above it, and then usually you're looking at around 45-20 range before you're going to capture any real pushback. So that's the long and the short of it, pretty quick and simple. As we get towards the end of the month, though, I think that Yeah. Well, we're still seeing outside range with volatility in the sense that it's pushing in strong directions. Either way, when we get some significant sell, I'm sure it'll be a bit more dramatic and clean to the downside as well as we fill back in some of those positive extremes. But we'll wait for that to happen. As always, though, I'll keep updating things as it's relevant. Trade well, and we'll talk to you later.